I was on a video call with a friend from Hong Kong last week. He was holding his phone up, excitedly showing me his meticulously planned itinerary for his fifth trip to Japan this year. He had every train ticket booked, every restaurant reservation made, and this color-coded map for navigating Shinjuku's ramen joints. It was intense. So I mentioned the news I've been reading, how dozens, maybe soon hundreds, of Japanese cities are adding new overtourism taxes to hotel bills, to try and manage the crowds. I asked if the extra cost night after night was making him reconsider. He paused his tour at the itinerary, looked at me through the screen, and just shrugged. What, like an extra $2 a night? He asked, before immediately going back to explaining the perfect angle to photograph Mount Fuji from his ryokan. That won't even cover my first onigiri at the 7-Eleven. That complete dismissal, that sense that a government policy designed to curb enthusiasm was seen as nothing more than, well, a trivial rounding error. It perfectly captures a much bigger story. It reveals this fundamental disconnect between a nation trying to catch its breath and a group of travelers whose love affair with the country seems, for now, completely unbreakable. This truly sets the stage for a fascinating discussion. We're diving deep into the world of tourism taxes in Japan, not just whether they're a minor inconvenience, but whether they can actually serve as like a vital tool for sustainable travel, capable of healing the very places being loved to death. Let's explore this intricate dance between Japan's incredible allure and the growing need for careful management.
It's an absolute critical issue, yeah. And it resonates far beyond Japan's borders, really.
Yeah.
Many global destinations are grappling with pretty similar pressures. Japan's unique situation, though, it offers a really compelling case study, balancing those profound economic benefits with preserving culture, environment, and, maybe most importantly, the quality of life for locals. The raw numbers themselves, they lay a powerful foundation for understanding just how urgent this is.
They truly do. And to grasp the full scope of this challenge, we really have to start by looking at Japan's unprecedented tourism boom, because that's what's driving this whole conversation, right? After the country finally lifted its pretty rigorous entry restrictions back in May 2023, the rebound wasn't just swift, it was, well, explosive. We saw this post-pandemic surge that has just shattered all previous records. In July 2024 alone, Japan welcomed an astonishing 3.29 million foreign tourists.
Wow, 3.29 million in 1 month.
Exactly. And if you look at the first half of 2024, that number climbs to 17.78 million visitors. That surpasses pre-pandemic levels for the same period by a pretty significant margin. So this isn't just getting back to normal, it's a dramatic acceleration. It points to this global hunger for Japan that only intensified during those years of travel restrictions.
And what's truly remarkable is that this rapid recovery, it's just the beginning of a much grander strategic vision from Japan. They've articulated these incredibly ambitious targets for their tourism sector. They are well on track to welcome 35 million visitors by the end of 2024. And the spending projected, a colossal 8 trillion yen, that translates to roughly 56 billion US dollars.
$56 billion, that's huge.
It is. And looking further down the line, the long-term goal is even more audacious. They're aiming for 60 million annual visitors and an astounding 15 trillion yen, that's around 105 billion US dollars in tourism spending by 2030. These aren't just, wishful thinking numbers. They represent a deliberate national strategy to position tourism as a cornerstone of Japan's future economic growth and diversification. Achieving these numbers, though, it will require not only attracting more visitors, but also managing their impact with unprecedented foresight and innovation.
That's a monumental undertaking. It leads us right to the question, what is it about Japan that makes it such an irresistible magnet? Not just attracting new visitors, but as we'll get into, bringing them back again and again. Beyond the current advantage of, the weak Japanese yen, which definitely makes travel more affordable for many international visitors, what are the deeper, more intrinsic drivers of this attraction?
The weak yen certainly offers a powerful economic incentive. Yeah, it's essentially acting like a global discount, making everything from luxury ryokans to street food more accessible. But Japan's allure, it really transcends mere cost. It consistently ranks as the third most attractive destination globally. And this high standing is deeply rooted in its rich cultural tapestry and a philosophy that's just central to its service industry, omotenashi.
Omotenashi, it's such a distinctive aspect of Japanese culture. For listeners who might not be intimately familiar, could you maybe elaborate on what that truly means, especially in the context of the hospitality visitors experience there?
Sure. Omotenashi isn't just like good service. It embodies this holistic, almost selfless approach to hospitality. It's about anticipating a guest's needs before they even express them. without any expectation of reward. You see it in every detail. The perfectly presented meal, the meticulously clean tatami room, the attentive staff who somehow remember your preferences, this deep-seated commitment to genuine care and, well, an almost spiritual attention to detail crafts this incredibly unique and memorable experience. It fosters a real emotional connection.
Ah, I see. It's that deeper connection.
Exactly. This cultural essence, combined with Japan's just unparalleled array of attractions, ancient temples, bustling neon cities, serene landscapes, culinary masterpieces, it's a primary reason for the incredibly high percentage of repeaters. By 2019, over 60% of foreign visitors were actually returning for subsequent visits. And those on their fourth trip or more even started to outnumber first-time visitors.
Wow, over 60% repeaters. That's extraordinary.
It really is. That statistic alone underscores this extraordinary level of loyalty and deep satisfaction among travelers. It's a testament to the country's enduring charm.
That's a truly powerful endorsement, reflecting this deep emotional bond many travelers form. Now, if we delve into the demographics, who exactly are these enthusiastic visitors flocking to Japan in such huge numbers? What's the latest picture? Tell us.
Well, the data for the first half of 2025 painted a pretty clear picture. 21.5 million overseas travelers. If we drill down just to June, we saw 3.38 million foreign visitors. That's a robust 7.6% increase from the previous year. Mainland China consistently contributed the largest number of arrivals, which reflects, strong cultural and geographical ties. Then you have South Korea and Taiwan following closely. Hong Kong, which is a historically significant market for Japan, ranked fourth with about 166,800 visitors during that period.
Okay, Hong Kong fourth. But I seem to recall reading about a temporary dip in visitors from Hong Kong around then. What was the specific reason behind that, and did that trend continue?
You're right to point that out. It's an important nuance. While Hong Kong ranked fourth overall, that specific June figure did see a notable, though temporary, decline. It was down 33.4% from the previous year. This drop was largely attributed to safety concerns that circulated quite widely after predictions of a potential megaquake in early July.
Ah, right, the earthquake scare.
Exactly. It really highlights how external factors, even if they're unconfirmed or temporary, can immediately impact travel decisions. But, and this is crucial, we need to put this into perspective, despite that specific short-term setback, Japan overwhelmingly remains a top destination for Hong Kong residents. In 2024, for example, 2.68 million travelers from Hong Kong visited Japan. That represents a substantial 7.3% of Japan's total foreign tourists.
Okay, so the underlying demand is still very strong.
Incredibly resilient, yeah. The strong cultural connections, the established tourism links they endure. A temporary scare might cause a dip, but the love affair, as you aptly put it earlier, it just quickly resumes.
So on one hand, we have this incredible success story, a nation mastering the art of attracting visitors. But on the other hand, success of this magnitude inevitably brings its own significant challenges. What does this phenomenon, often called overtourism, actually look like on the ground in Japan? How does it manifest on the daily lives of residents and impact these beloved destinations?
The strain of success, as you call it, is profoundly real, and frankly, quite visible in many parts of Japan now. The country is confronting challenges strikingly similar to those that have plagued popular destinations across Europe, where protests against overtourism have become, unfortunately, a pretty common sight. The sheer, overwhelming volume of visitors, while an undeniable economic boon, it's exerting immense pressure on local communities. It's pushing infrastructure to its limits, and in many cases, fundamentally altering the character of places once cherished for their tranquility.
That sounds like a really difficult double-edged sword. Can you give us a more vivid picture of the direct impact on locals, especially in those iconic, must-see areas everyone flocks to? What are residents actually experiencing day to day?
Well, imagine trying to live your daily life in a place that's basically become a permanent festival. In popular areas like, say, the historic Gion district in Kyoto, or the Deer Park in Nara, or around Mount Fuji, residents face a daily onslaught. We're talking severely strained infrastructure. Public transport, like local buses, they get so packed with tourists and luggage that locals struggle just to commute to work or go grocery shopping.
Oh, wow. I can see that being incredibly frustrating.
It is. Roads become gridlocked. Essential services like waste collection or even emergency access, they get critically impacted by the sheer volume of people. Beyond that, there's a tangible rise in the cost of living. Housing prices skyrocketing beyond the reach of local families. Everyday goods becoming more expensive as tourist demand inflates the market. And most viscerally, there's just the pervasive overcrowding. Once quiet residential streets now echo with the constant chatter of large tour groups, sometimes at all hours. We've seen reports of unprecedented litter, public spaces being overwhelmed, and a general degradation of the visitor experience itself. Iconic spots can become so crowded they lose their charm. All of this can lead to deep frustration among residents and, sadly, sometimes a growing resentment towards the very tourism that sustains their economy.
That paints a much clearer, much sadder picture of the human cost. And what about the more practical operational issues? How is Japan's unique context maybe exacerbating these problems?
Japan faces several very specific issues that compound the over-tourism problem. First, there are these widespread labor shortages across many industries. That's a demographic reality of Japan's aging and shrinking population. The hospitality sector is particularly hard hit. They're struggling with insufficient hotel staffing, a scarcity of experienced multilingual tour guides.
Right, making it hard to maintain that omotenashi quality.
Exactly. It's incredibly difficult when staff are stretched so thin. Second, accommodation and transport are just in chronic short supply, especially during peak seasons. This has led to serious government considerations, like maybe deregulating ride-sharing services, which would be a significant shift in a country known for its tightly regulated transport.
That would be a big shift.
The underlying issue here is this mismatch between explosive demand and a lagging supply. And it's made worse by a hospitality education system that hasn't really kept pace with the scale of growth. While stopgap solutions like foreign workers or even robotics can help alleviate some pressure, they can only partially address the fundamental challenges of maintaining high-quality service and preserving local tranquility without enough dedicated staff.
So Japan isn't just sitting back and watching this happen. They're clearly being proactive, strategic. What kind of multifaceted approach are they taking to address these strains?
Exactly. Japan's response is definitely multifaceted. And a central pillar of this strategy involves introducing new accommodation taxes. Local governments across the country are increasingly implementing these lodging taxes. They apply to various types of accommodation, modern hotels, traditional ryokans, you name it. And this isn't a small-scale experiment. So far, 42 municipalities have either already put these taxes in place or are actively planning to. That indicates a broad national recognition of the need.
42 municipalities, okay? And are these taxes uniform across the country, or do they vary quite a bit?
Oh, they vary quite widely, which makes sense, right? It reflects the diverse needs and tourism profiles of different areas. The fees can range from as low as 200 Japanese yen, that's roughly, $1.30 US, to as high as 10,000 yen, maybe $65 US per person per night. The specific rate usually depends on the region's tourism pressures, the type of accommodation, sometimes higher-end places pay more, and the local government's specific funding needs. It's a tailored approach.
Okay, localized. And how does a town or city actually go about implementing one?
Well, to formally introduce one of these taxes, a local government can't just decide on its own. They have to pass specific local laws, specific ordinances, and then get official approval from Japan's Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications. So there's a degree of oversight and coordination within a national framework.
Got it. So these taxes aren't just isolated initiatives. They're part of a much larger, coordinated national strategy.
Precisely. These local taxation efforts are meticulously integrated into a broader, comprehensive strategy by Japan. They're trying to achieve this delicate, crucial balance, maximizing the economic benefits of tourism while, at the same time, ensuring its long-term sustainability. With visitor numbers surging like this, the government recognizes that, a piecemeal approach just won't cut it. It requires this cohesive national effort, blending financial tools like taxes with infrastructure improvements, cultural preservation, smart visitor management. The ultimate goal is to safeguard the very essence of what makes Japan so attractive.
Right, ensuring it remains a high-quality, authentic, enjoyable destination for everyone involved.
For future visitors and for its own residents.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's all about navigating that incredibly delicate balance, isn't it? And sometimes, to truly understand the impact of policies like these beyond the big data, we need to zoom in on the human scale. I remember reading an interesting story online, translated from a local Kyoto blog. It was about an old man, Mr. Tanaka, who's owned a small pottery shop in the Gion district for over 50 years. He described how his quiet street, once a place where you could actually hear the shuffle of Geico sandals, had become this constant, roaring river of tourists.
50 years?
Yeah. He wasn't angry, he emphasized, just profoundly weary. He talked about the simple difficulty of just going to the market, the litter that appeared every single morning, and how the very soul of his neighborhood felt like it was being worn away by, the sheer volume of footsteps. When he first heard about the new accommodation tax, he was cynical, dismissing it as just another tax. But then, a few months later, a notice went up at the local community center. It detailed a new project. Restoring the old stone lanterns lining his street, a cherished historical feature, and hiring extra cleaning crews just for the tourist-heavy areas, all funded entirely by the new levy. And for the first time in years, he said he felt this flicker of genuine hope, a sense that maybe this tax wasn't just a fee, but a tangible tool to help residents reclaim a small piece of their peace and preserve the character of their home. Mr. Tanaka's story paints such a vivid human picture. It really underscores a crucial distinction. We often discuss these taxes in purely economic terms, revenue generation, demand regulation, but his experience reframes it entirely. It's about sustainability in a much deeper, more personal sense. The livability of a place, preserving community spirit, the well-being of residents. The true efficacy of a tax like this isn't solely in whether it slightly reduces tourist numbers, which, as we'll see, is often marginal. Its real power lies in its potential to mend the relationship between a city and its guests, using the revenue generated by tourism to heal and protect the parts of itself that are being loved to the point of exhaustion. It's a strategic move to manage not just the crowd, but the consequences of the crowd.
That's a truly powerful anecdote, and it drives home the essential dual role of these lodging taxes. On one hand, yes, they are absolutely about revenue generation. Local authorities are increasingly desperate for these funds. They're hopeful that taxes will provide the necessary financial injection to maintain, repair, enhance the tourism facilities and public infrastructure under so much strain. A nationwide survey illustrated this vividly. 728 out of 1,723 local governments expressed keen interest in implementing such taxes. That highlights a widespread, urgent need for funding across the country. It's a critical lifeline for many communities.
And the other side of that coin is demand regulation, right? The hope that these taxes might, at least partly, help manage or even gently curb the sheer volume of visitors.
Precisely. The taxes are also implicitly or explicitly intended to help manage the surge. Though, as you say, their direct impact on overall numbers is often debated, can be quite small. The rates themselves are tailored. For instance, Hokkaido, known for its nature, ski resorts is planning an accommodation tax. It'll range from 100 to 500 yen per person per night, starting April 2026. That reflects its distinct profile. Similarly, in Shizuoka Prefecture, the Higashi Izu Onsen hot spring town is raising its bathing tax to 300 yen from March 2025. These are very specific, targeted applications for localized pressures.
And what about Mount Fuji? Arguably Japan's most iconic natural landmark, clearly experiencing extreme overtourism. Are they doing similar things, maybe even stricter fees there?
Absolutely. Mount Fuji is a prime example requiring direct, robust intervention. Both Yamanashi and Shizuoka prefectures, which share the mountain, are planning a significant entry fee, 3,000 to 5,000 yen per climber. That's set to begin summer 2025.
Okay, that's quite a jump from the voluntary fee.
A big jump. It replaces the current, less effective, voluntary 1,000 yen conservation fee. The main goals are explicit: prevent dangerous overcrowding on trails, discourage bullet climbing.
What's bullet climbing exactly?
It's where people try to ascend and descend in one single, often exhausting push without adequate rest stops. It leads to safety issues, environmental damage.
Oh, okay. Got it.
So the fee aims to curb that and mitigate the severe environmental degradation from millions of footsteps. And they've already seen some success. Installing a gate on the popular Yoshida Trail led to a measurable 10% reduction in climbers year on year when it was implemented.
So physical and financial interventions can work together.
Exactly. It demonstrates that targeted measures can indeed impact access management.
So given these varied rates and goals, do these taxes actually deter tourists? Or is it, like my Hong Kong friend suggested, just a trivial rounding error for most people?
That really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the answer is, well, it's nuanced. Professor Jaime Rosella from the Balearic University, an expert in tourism economics, he's observed that, quote, the effect of such taxes on tourist demand is very small. This widely accepted view suggests that while these levies are crucial for funding improvements, they often have a pretty negligible impact on overall visitor numbers. The desire for the experience often outweighs the minor extra cost.
But the industry itself doesn't always see it that way.
No, sometimes they express significant concerns. For example, in Miyagi Prefecture, local accommodation providers actively resisted government plans for new taxes. They cited fears of management burdens, the admin complexity of collecting these small fees, and crucially, the fear of deterring customers, losing that competitive edge. We saw similar concerns when New Zealand tripled its international visitor levies, sparked debates about its impact on global competitiveness.
That makes sense. So there's the economic theory, but then practical application and perceived risks can differ. What does general economic theory typically suggest about taxes and tourism?
General economic research, like a study looking at Southwest Asian countries, consistently indicates that a high tax rate can indeed harm the tourism industry. It can reduce competitiveness, potentially shift demand to lower tax places, and ultimately impacts revenues if the burden becomes significant enough to change behavior. However, and this is crucial, Japan's accommodation taxes are in most cases relatively modest, and they're highly targeted for specific transparent purposes. They're generally not at a level considered high enough to trigger that broader detrimental economic effect on Japan's overall appeal. The perceived value often overrides these minor additions.
And this seems to align perfectly with what we heard about Hong Kong travelers. They're famously enthusiastic about Japan.
Precisely. Despite Japan's growing trend of imposing these taxes, the passion of Hong Kong travelers, in particular, remains remarkably strong. This resilience is largely down to Japan's profound cultural appeal, the geographical closeness, and those deep established tourism links built over decades. Experts widely believe this robust demand will continue, with these modest costs generally seen as trivial in the grand scheme of a dream trip. And this pattern isn't unique to Hong Kongers or Japan. We saw similar things in, say, Mallorca, where visitor numbers kept climbing even after new accommodation taxes came in. It speaks to a certain inelasticity of demand for really desirable places.
So for the vast majority, a few extra bucks or yen isn't going to make or break a trip to Japan, but I imagine there's a threshold, right? A point where these fees, if they were significantly higher, could start to genuinely influence decisions.
You've hit on a critical point there. There is absolutely a sliding scale, a threshold where a trivial rounding error becomes a significant financial consideration. While a small targeted tax might not deter someone who's saved for a unique trip, very high daily fees, like Bhutan's $100 sustainable development fee, that can unquestionably be a deal breaker for budget travelers or where alternatives are available.
Right, the value proposition changes.
Exactly. The perceived value relative to the total cost is paramount.
Whoa.
Ultimately, while an extra few hundred yen might not dissuade those genuinely committed to visiting Japan, there's a belief that a sustained, significant long-term price hike could eventually lead to a slight, gradual drop in tourism. But for all these pricing strategies, transparency in how the funds are used is absolutely crucial. Travelers are increasingly conscious, aiming to leave places better than when they arrived, and a clear understanding of the purpose of the tax, seeing it visibly contribute, that can foster support and participation, even if it doesn't change the initial decision. It shifts the perception from a penalty to an investment.
That distinction, penalty versus investment, makes a lot of sense. And that brings us to the next critical layer, the ripple effects on the businesses facilitating these trips, especially travel agencies. Let's try to imagine a scene to really illustrate this. Picture a young travel agent in Hong Kong. Let's call her May. She's at her desk, office lights humming. On the phone is a family parents, 2 kids saved for 3 years for their first trip to Japan. Dreamed of Kyoto temples, Shinjuku lights. May has crafted the perfect itinerary right down to the last dollar of their tight budget. Then, news of the new municipal lodging taxes comes in. For this family of 4 over 7 nights, it adds up to an extra 5,600 yen. Not huge, maybe 300 Hong Kong dollars, but for them, on that budget, it matters.
Right, it's noticeable.
So May faces this classic business dilemma. Does she pass the cost on, potentially souring their excitement, maybe making them reconsider? Or does her agency absorb it, taking a hit on an already slim margin to ensure a perfect experience, get their loyalty? She decides to absorb it, tells the family it's a special discount. The relief in the mother's voice is palpable. May's small imagined moment perfectly illustrates these intricate, often unseen ripple effects. It's not just about tourists paying a few extra yen, it's about the complex economic web supporting tourism. For agencies like May's, market competitiveness is fierce. Her decision to absorb the cost. It's a strategic move to retain a client in a price-sensitive market, build loyalty.
That's a fantastic way to frame it, because May's dilemma is one countless agencies face daily. When we discuss absorbing or passing on costs, industry leaders offer slightly different views, shaped by their business models. Steve Huen-Kwok-Shem from EGL Tours, specializing in Japan package tours, he suggests an extra tax of, say, 800 to 1,200 yen for a 5-day trip is, quote, insignificant. From his perspective, there's no big reason for agencies to raise tour prices just because of this tax.
So his view is it's basically a non-issue for agencies or easily managed within their pricing.
Pretty much, yeah. And Yun Chunning, CEO of WWPKG, another major player, he echoes this. He says accommodation taxes are too trivial to affect one's traveling decision and crucially can mostly be absorbed by travel agencies for package tours. This perspective is vital because for organized package tours, agencies often have a slim but manageable buffer. Absorbing these minor costs becomes a strategic choice.
To keep customers happy, protect the brand.
Exactly. The cost of losing a customer over a few dollars outweighs absorbing the tax. It preserves their competitive edge.
But this conversation also brings up that broader economic principle, especially for individual hotels. How does demand elasticity play into whether costs get passed on or absorbed?
Demand elasticity is absolutely central here. The impact on hotel prices depends heavily on how sensitive demand is to price changes. If demand is highly elastic, meaning visitors are very price sensitive, might easily choose an alternative, then hotels will likely absorb the tax. They'll take the margin hit rather than risk losing bookings by raising prices.
Okay.
Conversely, if demand is relatively inelastic, meaning it's not very price sensitive, often the case for unique destinations like Japan where the experience is hard to replicate, then hotels have more leeway. They can more easily pass the tax on to guests through increased room prices without a big drop in bookings. For many repeat visitors, or those with specific interests, Japan's offerings are unique enough.
That's a crucial distinction, how much the market can bear before consumers really balk. And speaking of market competitiveness, we're also seeing some really interesting, maybe controversial strategies around dual pricing emerge. Tourists and locals paying different rates.
This is indeed a particularly sensitive and evolving area. It touches on equity, accessibility. Himeji Castle, for instance, a huge draw, is set to implement dual pricing from March 2026. Local residents pay 1,000 yen. Visitors from outside the region, mostly international tourists, will pay between 2,000 and 3,000 yen.
That's a clear difference.
Very clear, institutionalized. We've also seen anecdotal examples, like a Tokyo restaurant owner, Shogo Yanamitsu, offering discounts to Japanese residents. His rationale: increased operational costs for international tourists, hiring English speakers, multi-language menus, and, as he put it, the extra labor of teaching foreigners the right manners.
Ooh, that's a bit pointed.
It is. But he argues it justifies a higher price for visitors. Similarly, Junglia Okinawa, an amusement park, charges tourists 8,800 yen versus 6,390 yen for locals. The stated reasoning is often offsetting extra service costs or benefiting local taxpayers who already support the sites.
That certainly sounds like a direct way to address different costs.
Yeah.
But I can imagine implementing such overtly different pricing could face legal or even constitutional challenges in Japan.
You're absolutely right. This is where it gets legally and ethically complex. Proposals for explicitly discriminatory taxes like Osaka's potential entry fee just for foreigners or Kyoto's idea of dual pricing on public transport, they face substantial legal hurdles. The main concern: they can be deemed unconstitutional, violating principles of non-discrimination. Japan's constitution guarantees equality under the law. So any policy creating different price tiers based purely on nationality or residency could be challenged. It's a fine line between managing resources sustainably and potentially alienating visitors, or worse, breaking fundamental laws. The debate often centers on whether extra charges are specific services rendered or just a potentially discriminatory levy.
So, from the tourist perspective, putting aside the legal debates, how sensitive are they really to these price changes? We started with my friend shrugging off a couple of dollars. Where's that tipping point?
Well, studies and real-world observations suggest it's not always straightforward. Think Mallorca, again, visitor numbers kept climbing despite accommodation taxes, indicates resilience for desirable places. But as we noted with Bhutan, that $100 daily fee can be a deal breaker for budget travelers, or if perceived value isn't unique enough. The contrast highlights a key point. Impact depends on perceived uniqueness and available substitutes. For a unique place like Japan, demand elasticity for a small tax is low.
So it's that sliding scale again where the trivial rounding error becomes a real financial consideration.
Exactly. While an extra few hundred yen might not deter committed visitors, especially repeaters, there's a belief that a sustained, across-the-board price hike could, long-term, lead to a slight but measurable drop. It'd likely affect more price-sensitive segments or those on longer stays. Ultimately, for all these strategies, transparency in fund allocation is crucial. Travelers are increasingly conscious, aiming to leave places better. Understanding the tangible purpose of the tax, seeing it directly contribute, can foster support, even if it doesn't change the initial decision. It becomes a shared investment.
And that idea of shared investment, active contribution, brings us perfectly to our next point. It's about more than just collecting money. It's what that money is used for. I heard an anecdote about a young university student, Yuna, who volunteers on weekends maintaining hiking trails in Kamakura Coastal City, famous temples, Giant Buddha. She loves the history, the nature, but she's seen the harsh toll of over-tourism firsthand. She described a path near Hasgara Temple where sheer visitor numbers caused severe soil erosion, exposing ancient tree roots, making the trail unsafe after rain. She'd spend hours with other volunteers doing patch-up work, knowing it was a losing battle against millions of footsteps. For Yuna, the tax debate wasn't abstract economics. It was literally about the survival of her environment. When the city announced a portion of tax revenue would be specifically earmarked for environmental conservation, cultural site preservation, including trail restoration, it felt like a lifeline. She imagined funds used not just for repairs, but better multilingual signage about environmental fragility, maintaining gardens of lesser-known temples, part of Kamakura's soul. Yuna's story, for me, encapsulates the most profound purpose of a tourism tax, transforming passive visiting into active contribution. Tourists, often unknowingly, contribute to wear and tear. This tax creates a direct mechanism for them to contribute to healing, upkeep, resilience. Yuna's hope underscores this isn't a penalty. It's a vital investment in the future of these irreplaceable sites, a forward-thinking approach to sustainable development, ensuring the beauty drawing millions today will still be there tomorrow, for visitors and locals.
That really is the core message, beautifully put. The proactive, strategic earmarking of funds for specific initiatives is precisely where these taxes show their true potential in fostering sustainable development. Yeah. The collected money isn't just absorbed into general coffers, it's meticulously allocated for critical infrastructure upgrades, vital improvements to transport, making public spaces better, enhancing facilities for foreign visitors. Think more robust, multilingual tourist info centers, ubiquitous Wi-Fi, improved local bus services more frequent, more capacity to manage flow, reduce congestion.
So it's about making the whole visitor ecosystem stronger, more resilient, a foundational investment.
Exactly. And beyond infrastructure, a significant portion is explicitly directed towards environmental conservation. Protecting stunning landscapes, maintaining vital mineral springs, preventing the kind of damage Yuna saw: erosion, waste. Funds pay for large-scale trail restoration, better waste management, hiring dedicated cleaning crews for tourist-heavy areas. Tangible, visible ways the tax revenue directly supports ecological health.
And cultural preservation must be absolutely huge in that, especially in Japan with its incredibly rich history.
Absolutely. Cultural heritage preservation is paramount. These levies are critical for safeguarding historical landmarks, meticulously maintaining sites like ancient shrines and temples, restoring traditional features like Mr. Tanaka's stone lanterns in Kyoto, or upkeep of historic wooden houses. It ensures the heritage drawing millions is actively protected, sustained through specialist traditional crafts. Plus, revenue can also be used strategically for tourism promotion, often highlighting lesser-known destinations to manage distribution, and supporting essential public services, maintaining bathhouses, enhancing firefighting facilities.
It sounds like a truly comprehensive, almost holistic approach. Are there good international examples of how other places allocate their tourism tax funds, things Japan can learn from or maybe inspire its own strategies?
There are indeed many excellent international examples highlighting similar priorities, often with sophisticated allocation models. In Bali, Indonesia, for instance, that new 15 AU levy per international visitor is projected to generate 25 million AU1, specifically for cultural preservation and vital waste management, directly addressing their big environmental challenges. Closer to Japan, Miyajima Island launched an entry tax, about 1 AU for single entry. Funds are meticulously allocated: infrastructure maintenance, visitor amenities, cultural preservation, shrine upkeep.
So specific uses, not just broad categories. That enhances transparency, makes travelers feel more like contributors.
Precisely. Specific allocation is key for public support. New Zealand's 100 NZI visitor levy funds, national park conservation, climate programs, broader sustainable tourism initiatives. In the U.S., Houston directs its 17% accommodation tax to local infrastructure Tourism projects. Sarasota, Florida has a really transparent model. 6% tourist tax is clearly distributed, 30% destination marketing, 24% beach nourishment, the rest for sports facilities, nature centers, culture. Even Iceland's Tourist Site Protection Fund combines tax revenue with government funding to maintain attractions, safeguard resources. Shows a global consensus on needing these funding mechanisms.
What's truly fascinating is the underlying mindset shift. It's not just passive revenue collection, it's encouraging visitors to become active participants, co-stewards.
That's a perfect encapsulation. Shuji Mukai from Miyajima Planning articulates it beautifully. He says, visitors are required not only to be travelers and consumers, but also to engage with the community as contributors to the creation of sustainable tourism destinations. This fundamental shift from mere consumption to active contribution is critical for long-term sustainability and authentic enjoyment. Fosters shared responsibility.
And looking ahead, how is technology, specifically digital transformation, DX, playing a role in this broader push for sustainable tourism in Japan? Is it just marketing or more?
DX is absolutely central, not peripheral. His role goes way beyond marketing. It helps in numerous ways. More sophisticated, personalized marketing targeting specific demographics for lesser-known areas, overcoming language barriers with translation apps, AI kiosks, more efficient accommodation management. Crucially, it provides invaluable real-time congestion data. This is where it gets really strategic.
Tracking crowds.
Exactly. Digital solutions generate granular, actionable data on visitor flows. Local authorities, operators can make informed, dynamic decisions, use data to inform better strategies, proactively prevent overtourism by predicting crowd levels, and most effectively, divert tourists from congested hotspots to equally captivating but lesser-known alternatives. It's smart predictive management.
So Japan clearly isn't alone in managing tourism pressures. Many places globally are grappling with this using diverse strategies. What does this global landscape of tourism taxes look like? How do Japan's efforts fit in?
It truly is a diverse global picture, a mosaic of taxes tailored to local needs. In Europe, high accommodation taxes are common, reflecting dense urban areas, strain on historical infrastructure. Amsterdam stands out. 12.5% rate, projected 430 million AU by 2025. Barcelona uses city and regional levies, adding up significantly. Paris taxes based on accommodation quality from 3.11 on Notum, AU LEO, up to $25.70 AU person night. Venice has that specific day tripper fee, 8.25 AU. Edinburgh plans a 5% levy. These figures, often higher than Japan's initial 200 yen, reflect different economic contexts, political appetites for taxation.
Those are significant figures. What about the Asia-Pacific region, closer to Japan? What are they doing?
Equally varied, context-specific. Bali's 15 AU levy for culture, waste management. New Zealand's 100 NZ Gua conservation levy. South Korea's Jeju Island is planning this innovative multi-tier system. Nightly fees, entry charges, vehicle surcharges, all revenue earmarked for waste infrastructure. Shows how places try capturing revenue at various touchpoints.
And across the Americas and Oceania, similar trends.
A similar blend. Many U.S. cities rely heavily on lodging taxes, Houston up to 17%. Hawaii has high lodging tax, 10.25% plus 3% in Honolulu. Canada, though, generally keeps a lower VAT, 5%, aiming for competitive pricing, less overt tax consumption. So tax types span accommodation, entry-departure, specific bathing taxes, cruise transit fees, day visitor fees. But despite the diversity, the common thread for revenue use is consistent. Infrastructure, environment, culture, community support.
So beyond just the type of tax, how are places managing the flow? Adjusting rates, other measures to control crowds, mitigate impacts?
Absolutely. Managing flows through dynamic seasonal adjustments, targeted exemptions is common, increasingly sophisticated. Cities like Barcelona, Prague strategically implement higher rates during peak seasons. Subtly curbs overcrowding, makes peak travel slightly pricier, while lower off-peak rates attract visitors, distribute tourism more evenly, help smooth demand curves.
And who typically gets exempted? Are there common categories most places agree shouldn't pay?
Yes, exemptions are common for specific categories. Typically includes children under a certain age, individuals with disabilities, often +1 companion. Documented business travelers are often exempt. Also, patients for medical tourism, tour bus drivers, guides, cruise ship crew. Exemptions avoid penalizing vulnerable groups, support essential travel functions, differentiate leisure from other travel.
We've talked a lot about the intent revenue, demand regulation, sustainability, but how effective are these taxes really in isolation? Are taxes alone enough to solve the complex problem of overtourism?
That's perhaps the most critical question. Critics often argue, with good evidence, that fees, especially lower ones, are typically too low to significantly influence travel decisions or single-handedly solve complex overtourism issues. The Venice day tripper tax example is illustrative. It generates revenue, but locals protest it. The core issue is lack of affordable housing, not just day trippers. Highlights that taxes might be a revenue tool, but may not address fundamental root causes alone. Studies repeatedly show effectiveness in solving deep environmental social problems is questionable unless combined with a broader suite of measures. It's not a magic bullet, it's one component.
So what does a truly integrated, successful approach look like then? Are there success stories combining taxes with other initiatives that Japan could emulate?
Absolutely. Dubrovnik in Croatia offers an excellent blueprint. Heavily impacted by cruise ships. They didn't just tax berthing, they strategically reorganized cruise schedules max 2 ships day. Took bold steps. Removed restaurant terraces from main streets to ease congestion. Leveraged tech.web platform predicting visitors, app guiding tourists to alternatives. Result: visible decrease in crowds, improved visitor experience, more positive local sentiment.
That's a fantastic example, holistic, using financial and logistical levers. What about a major city like Amsterdam, which is vocal about combating inconvenient tourism?
Amsterdam's another prime example of a multi-pronged, often assertive approach. Alongside raising fees, they implemented social engineering measures, reduced bar club hours, banned public marijuana smoking in the red light district, planned to convert some hotels to residential office space. Their explicit aim: deter inconvenient tours, those mainly for alcohol, sex, drugs, redefine tourism towards a more culturally respectful, sustainable model. It's a strong statement about controlling the type of tourism they want.
And Japan, too, is clearly thinking beyond just taxes, right? Broader strategy to manage flows, disperse impact.
Yes, the Japan Tourism Agency, JTA, is actively pursuing a broader, highly strategic approach. Key focus: diverting tourists from overcrowded hotspots like Tokyo, Kyoto, to Japan's many equally captivating lesser-known destinations. They've designated 20 model tourism destinations to test innovative strategies, selected 51 distinct areas that actively promote unique experiences. The goal is specifically engaging repeaters, loyal visitors who've seen the main sites, offering compelling new reasons to explore different regions, spreads benefits, reduces pressure, cultivating depth, not just density.
This all paints a compelling picture of Japan's evolving vision for its tourism future. What does that long-term vision ultimately look like?
Japan's tourism sector is undeniably poised to become an even more significant economic driver. The commitment to sustainable success, bolstered by this dynamic regulatory environment. Sophisticated policies is clear, deeply embedded. Significant untapped potential exists. Unique, tailor-made experiences for niche markets. Burgeoning ecotourism, leveraging natural beauty beyond landmarks. Even beach tourism in southern islands offer growth avenues inherently less concentrated, more amenable to sustainable management. The overarching commitment to sustainable tourism, powerfully bolstered by these taxes and broader measures, reflects not just a national imperative, but a growing global trend. Finding that crucial, delicate balance between maximizing tourism's economic benefits and meticulously preserving authenticity, environment, cultural appeal. For everyone, for generations.
We've taken a deep dive into Japan's multifaceted efforts to manage its tourism boom, and it's become abundantly clear these accommodation taxes are profoundly more than just, well, a trivial rounding error. From the wary pottery shop owner like Mr. Tanaka finding hope in street restorations, to the strategic decisions by travel agents like May absorbing costs, and the dedicated efforts of volunteers like Yuna protecting fragile beauty. These levies are rapidly becoming a crucial tool. They're actively funding essential infrastructure, preserving irreplaceable cultural sites, protecting the very natural beauty that draws us in. What's truly fascinating here is while the immediate economic impact on an individual traveler might seem small, the collective impact these strategically allocated taxes have on a destination's future can be, frankly, profound. It's about ensuring that the unbreakable love affair with Japan can continue not just for us as visitors today, but for all the generations to come, and crucially for the vibrant communities who proudly call these beautiful places home.